Today, Rinpoche began to explain the Bodhisattva vow, how to take it, and who is an appropriate vessel to take that Bodhisattva vow. Did you bring the World of Tibetan Buddhism book? Okay. So previously, welcome everybody. Once again, we're looking, thank you very much, Coleman. We're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and specifically the section on training the mind, the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. So we're going to, in the English, we just finished up the section that deals with the idea that the perfection of wisdom teachings that we find in the sutra vehicle are those teachings that we would call teachings that are shared in common or have a commonality with others. So we've shown how those perfections also are common to the tantric vehicle as well as the perfection vehicle. So we finished that section, and now right below it there is, I'm not sure if Rinpoche's, we're going to concentrate on the next stanza on page 99, if everybody wants to turn to that, or if we're going to get into a new chapter. So just wait and see which Rinpoche decides to do. So that's where we are.
This one.
And then Puik Sun
Ngachunganga Jiki del Duang Hadang, Junchuan Pajitiba Tumon is the Gazon de the Tabiton Shera Paradishima Drugi Dubala, Lobane, Hashebatar, Hadang, Paradishima Niki Tumon, Shindu Lobis, Nabas, Lagure, Pajitibe Lagure, Tumon is Tumon Yede, Haji Junchua Domane. Jai Kantan, Lai, Goba Jin, Jin Jung, Tanji, Nag Sentient, de la Shibitze, Shindu Tang, Shanshu Sudun Tang, Tony Jurusula, Tony Jurula, Pari, Shimbi, Lang, Yonsu Zuba, Layana, Yatan, Shibi Sheros.
Yes, sir.
What the Naga Jidon, or there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Taka the Shindu Laba, the Pajin Tibatan, Niga Tomore.
So the six perfections are actual practices that we find in the perfection vehicle, but also these practices are common to the tantric vehicle as well. So we call them common practices. So here it says that the actual tantric realizations of the deity and the pure land and so forth are actual manifestations of the excellent qualities which are these practices. So it says, for in many of the tantric classics we find repeated mention of the complete path of the perfections, the 6 perfections, 37 branches of enlightenment, the 16 emptinesses, etc. In the context of explanations that the entire celestial mansion and the array of resident deities are the inner qualities of the mind. Therefore know that all the perfections of wisdom literature, explanations about what is to be adopted and what is to be discarded, are comprehensively shared with the mantra vehicle, except in the case of tantric teachings for certain exceptional persons in which they must take the experience, sensory objects as the path, and so forth. So this is where we are. Disa.
Yana Shibijo, Tena Ganza Chebaran Gajila, Duyan to Chewa Su, Parut Simba Ne, Sheban Gaji, Dolem Matuba, Tumon Kona, Shebasha was, Tena Jusen Shana, Ganza Cheban Gajila, Duyan to Shebala Suba, Parut Shimba Ne, Sheban Gajila, 네 돌렘 마두바 남 토모 코나시바자 오스 다 바진티바도 나고 토모레스 단도연 랑도 쳐봤던데 시바 이나 바진티비 랑다 데스 먼저 시고야 같이 요리 마도 쟁가로 잡으레스 what does one think about that?
Less so. And Rinpoche, the Doni Judru, the Parshin, the Kabiyare, the Jason.
돈이 주로도 와데 모두 제 잡았던 시기 투니시 송사주래. 시기 투니쇼. 시기 투니쇼가 난 다음 주로도 돈이 주로를 자고 그래서 배신 파신도 봐.
Yeshigitsok?
시기 투니쇼.
Tuche. Okay, Tuche.
돈이도 비셔라니쇼. 돈이도 비셔라니쇼가 난 다음 주로도 돈이 주로 돈이도 비셔 주로를 자고 그래서 배신.
Ngudujan.
모두 제다 내버려서 말ပဲ내버려서 다 모두 제가 집안 잡으래.
Okay. So here it says that for in many Tantric classics we find repeated mention of the complete path of the perfections, the 6 perfections. So those are the perfections that we know of and we'll go over in the future. And the 37 branches of enlightenment. So we already went over those 37 branches of enlightenment, utilizing Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection. So we find that as our source for commentary, but it's also presented in the ornament, Maitreya's ornament for clear realization. So it's broken up into various categories. We have the 4 mindfulnesses, or the 4 close placements of mindfulness. So this is the first category. Then the 4 complete abandonments, or 4 abandonments. And then the 4 factors, or 4 legs of magical emanation. Here they also translate it as of miraculous powers. But there's definitely legs, gambaji, 4 legs of magical emanation. It says here in the commentary, it's also known as 4 legs. I'm reading it. Also here, we have the 5 faculties, and then the five powers, 7 branches of the path of enlightenment, and then the final category, which is the 8-fold path, or the 8 branches of enlightenment, which is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the varying categories. Gotcha. These are the varying categories that we find within the 37 branches of enlightenment, as explained in Panchen Sonandrapa's text. And then the 16 emptinesses, when we look at the Abhisamalamkara, Maitreya's ornament for clear realization, we find that there are 20 wisdoms realizing emptinesses presented. So the first of those 20 are these 16 wisdoms realizing emptiness. So the 16 emptinesses are referring to that which is mentioned in that text among the 20, and it's actually separated into 16 and 4. And those are actual wisdoms realizing emptiness, and their source material, again, for that is the ornament for clear realization. So it's saying that these excellent qualities of the mind just mentioned are what produce the mansion and produce the Pure Land, produce the deity. So it's saying that in the context of the explanations that the entire celestial mansion and the array of resonant deities are the inner qualities of the mind. Therefore know that all the perfection of wisdom literature's explanations about what is to be adopted and what is to be discarded are comprehensively shared with the mantra vehicle. So here it's saying, except in the case of tantric teachings for certain exceptional persons. So it's saying, for the most part, most normal people do it in this fashion. So the normal, ordinary person would do it in this fashion. It's saying that there are some cases, very few, of exceptional persons, exceptional cases where one has to use negativities as paths. So basically experience of sensory objects, transforming them into paths. So that experience, those which would normally be negative, that an actual negativity in the is transformed. So it's saying that there are very few cases where one does that. Usually it's as explained here. Digsung Rinpoche.
오야 다 돈마 공도 시에발라 사변 시에네 다고 상주주도 생제네 아니 신도를 말로나 아니 대바침에 랑차 상월로 두고 말다 말로나 아니 상제 두고 말해서부터 레두고서 공도 시에발라 사변 시에데스 레버산네 랑쇼로와 메비 네 차상와라 내가 많이 나서 차상와 타도 싫어 차상와 타도 싫어 차상와라 내가 많이 나 그거받으면 마시나 안 대바침보 시랑지 강마세 바타 유스 대바침보 시랑지 강나데 네 마시바나 시도고 모도스 마세바 나유 싫어도 대바 나지스 싫어도 대바 루루도 대바 나지 들랑가 때문에 상주주도 생제네 타도 싫어 차상와라 하고 들랑가 때문에 고도스 그 때문에 시고도스 나유 싫어도 대바 나지 들랑가 때문에 상주주도 생제네 타도 싫어 차상와라 하고 내가 때문에 야부 시바시 고도스 내가 때문에 제라 것도 많네 티바 주게 리지네 봐 제제수 땅샤오스 와드된 와드바도
Then Sasha. Okay. So then it says, take the above explanation as a seed. So, microphones. Okay. Take the above explanation as a seed and reflect on it well. If you are not then certain about a path that is not just part. Let me try this again. Take the above explanation as a seed and reflect on it well. If you are not then certain about a path that is not just partial but complete in all aspects, you have not comprehended the foundation of the Mahayana path in general. Therefore, intelligent ones generate a solid certainty about this path of method and wisdom, and in many ways continuously grow in your natural capacity for the supreme vehicle. Dikson.
어데 다 손바라 하발라 로비 내가 인시바 손바 데레도 손바 사진으로래 세진의 슈발을 합이 줄어송 세진의 슈발을 하고 비주세 타제를 올라 합이 상제만 루바 때문에 바지 하발라 로비 내가 인시바 손바 데레도 손바 어디 사지가 어디 손바 데레도 다 손바 하발라 로비 내가 인시바 손발 하발라 로비 내가 인시발라 니레도 와니 손사들에도 손 세진의 슈발을 합이 하고 비주세 타제를 올라 합이 상제만 루바 때문에 하발라 로비 내가 인시바 손바 데레도 다
The Lamrim Sache?
사지
Okay. The Rimba?
세진의 슈발을 합이 주 세진의 슈발을 합이 줄어송 세진의 슈발을 하고 비주세 타제를 올라 합이 상제만 루바 때문에 하발을 하고 내가 인시바 손바 데레도
Jutes. Establishing the desire. The Teichen, the Shi Nyamlan, Rube.
세진의 슈발을 합이 줄어송 라린 사지로 세진의 슈발을 하고 비주세 타제를 올라 합이 상제만 루바 때문에 니바지 하발을 하고 제가 인시바 손 어디 하발을 하고 제가 인시바 들레도 손바세들 손발라 하발라 루비 제가 인시바라 니 티젠실라 하주다 차바도 도지테발라 비주
Less so. Isn't that where we are? Hold on. Ni sache the kakare. That's the not that's go. Ni the la trugamari. How to train?
라니 쳔부다 라니 쳔불
Na lamrim chenmo da tanda. Then kakare. The jutsen da. The yomare. The ewa sum kakare. The ewa sum.
저저 트로들만 좀 가가 용시고 말다
The sum. Ewa sum. The sumba ewa sum yure. How to train the Mahayana in general. The 6 perfections. The Leyu Jepa. The Teichen Yanlan and Shi, the Ewa Sum.
손발 하발라 루비 많이 시바들라 니 티바실라 루비 루지 동부지 제바 도지 티발 한을 장수들어
Nipa.
어디 니바들에
The Yure. Okay.
전 동불라 송으로와
Tambo La Sum. The Yure.
상생지 하발라 룬도 장바다스
Lasso.
장네 제세지 동바도마스 니바워들에
Okay. The Ngayure.
존은 제달하비 출로 사지 송리도
Lasso. The Yure.
야 어두고 좀
Gonga me bachi grimche. Ngay Jun. So now we get into category number 3. So we move on to the next chapter, the explanation of the process of learning the precepts. So then there are 2 major headings there. We have first how to train in the Mahayana in general, and then number 2, how to train specifically in the Vajrayana, the Tantrayana. So these are the 2 main categories. So the first category, how to train in the Mahayana in general, has 3 categories. First category, establishing the desire to learn the precepts of the spirit of enlightenment. Second category, taking the vows of the conqueror's children after establishing the desire to learn the precepts. And number 3, how to train after taking the vows. So these are the 3 categories of the first category of the third category. Dixon.
어제 다 대바 손발 하발라 루비 많이 시발라니 대바 쳔마실라 라우치 당바지 대바 도지발라 수니바지
Lasso.
다 대바 쳔마실라 라우치들라 송레도
Lasso.
샹세지 하발라 론드 장바 당바지
Lasso.
전에 제세지 동바송 샹추세미 동발래야들도
Lasso.
샹세지 동바송 존에 제달라비지 샹세지 동바들에 사도 가르치고레스 어디 주둥고레스.
Okay, so these categories, again, explanation of the process of learning the precepts. First category is to train in the Mahayana in general, how you do that. And the second category is how to train specifically in Tantra, in Vajrayana. Then the 3 categories of how to train in the Mahayana in general, establishing desire to learn the precepts of the spirit of enlightenment. So first is setting a motivation, a desire to want to learn. And then taking the vows of the conqueror's children after establishing the desire to learn the precepts. So this is actually taking the bodhisattva vow, and then how to train after you've taken the vows. So what do you do? Once you've taken a bodhisattva vow, what should you train in? What should you do? So these are the 3 categories. Decent.
This one.
Why I didn't bring that book?
Oh, that tambula ni tambula song 샹생 지 러버실라 론데 장바 당부지 janne 제세지 동바 존와 샹주 세미 동바 래야들도와 존네 제달러비 동바 존 사주 가르쳐 거레스 사제 송지 다 당부 샹생지 러버실라 로비 취들라 당부네 실라 로비 취들레스 당부네 도와당 하니라 당부라니 당부 라라게 도바 마존와 네 하자나 녀도 모로야스 드는다다 만다데 뭐도 하자나 레바셰바시 규잔에 테네 네 제바 트로나 네 도바 모바 임시로스 하도 도바 샹생도 도바 수타도 도바 송여들다 송고나네 하다 수다고 동바던 라고 말했어. 하다 수다고 동바도 마종바도 네 하가 러자다 수다가 라도 라고 말했어. 데 샤슈 선배 동바데 동바 샤선들 샤슈 선배 동비 하자들 장고르스. 하자들 야부장네. 되네 수수 다 동발렌 투사를 선바지 셀 보바 레소나 안 동바도 종고로 된다고 말했어. 동보네 도와당 하니라스 도와당 도와는 다 도와당 하니라 동보랑기 동바마송와 도와당 하니라 도알다 글롱다 그수다 그년도 저게 내가 그래 하자도 녀발라 동바 내고레스 동바들래 되는 그런 걸 하자다 그수 하자다 그냥 하자도 장고레스 상주 선배 동바다다라고 말했어 동바네 안에 상주 선배 하자도 로종 아버지네 하도번 누구도 산다네 안에 하도번 누나 안 상주 선배 동바 종고레스 소다 상선 상하 송부들 도발렘 주도 어떤 말아레스 네 하다 소다니라 도마드 말랑바도 사자 내주고 말레스 상선 듣는다고 말해 상선 동벌 하자를 로정제 상선 하자 네 하자도 로정제네 사도번 도나 안 상주 선배 도발랑고래 어떤다고 말았었는데 말봐.
Less so.
도와당 하니라 동보 라게 동바 마종와스 소다고 동바당 상하고 동바도 마종와 안에 소다 동벨 하자당 상하게 하자도 내주고 말했어. 상선 듣는다고 말했어. 안에 상선 하자도 동바 쉐바지 내네 안에 라도번 도는 상주세면 도발래고도 소다 상하 송고다네 샤선 때다가 말문다고 말했어. 마송을 하자나라. 년도 모노야. 근데 대다다 문다데 상주 선배 동바데 하다. 안에 소다고 동바다고 말했어. 대다다 문다데 나도 하자나라 레버 하자나 레버 쉐바시 주장네 상주 선배 하자도 가 쉐바지네 주장네 tenen zeba tu nas shanchu sebe domba la gabu dona ane domba de ures boba yemi sheros kale jun mada
Okay, Dixon.
soda shansa sanga domba song marbe
Less so. Self-buddha.
soda domba sanga domba shansa domba
Less so. Chapter.
soda de sanga ni de domba ni domba ma song ba de haja nian chu mares
Less so.
shansa de da mares
So do.
shansa la domba ni ane tal sosu domba la ga domba dona ane domba len de da mares
Less so.
shanju sembe domba da soda sanga da mares on marbe
Less so. So here, category number 1 is under the main heading of how to train in the Mahayana in general, is establishing the desire to learn the precepts of the spirit of enlightenment. So here it's going to show the differences between the vows and sets in general. So the difference between the Tantrayana and individual liberation vows and the Bodhisattva vow. So it says, in the discipline of individual liberation and in Tantra, it is inappropriate to study the precepts before you have first taken the vows, but these Bodhisattva vows are different. So what it's saying here is that the individual liberation vows, such as the fully ordained monk or the fully ordained nun vow or novice monk and nun vow, and so forth, the Rinpoche, the Genye, Pai Dumba, Tambo, the Lobjung Che Chogamare.
domba de
Okay.
shugul haja de
Chipa. Two chena. So I was just double checking with Rinpoche because it seems so simple. There's only 5. If it also would include the layperson vow. So it does. So Rinpoche said all of the individual liberation vows would be the same. as well as the tantric vows. First you take the vow, then you can study what the vows are. So even in the case of the 5 vows of the householder, you aren't supposed to know those vows first before you take them. You aren't supposed to study them, you're not supposed to read the list of them, nothing. It's supposed to be you take the vow because you have the desire to, because it's called individual liberation, you have renunciation, so you want to emerge and you know this is, you take it no matter what. The Bodhisattva vow is different. The Bodhisattva vow is a vow that you can study and analyze, and then at the point to which you understand it and have trained in it, it actually says after you have trained in them, so you actually decide whether or not to take the vow based on your understanding of the vow and your ability to keep the vow in place of practice. So it says, first you understand the precepts well, and then after you are trained in them, if you have an enthusiasm for taking them, you are given the vows. In this regard, the Bodhisattva vow says, for persons wanting to take the ethical discipline vows of a Bodhisattva, you should make known in advance the fundamental precepts and the sources of fault for Bodhisattvas taught here in the summary of the Bodhisattva fundamentals, for the Bodhisattva's scriptural collection of the discourses. If after sincere investigation and intelligent analysis these persons are inspired, and if it is not because of being made to do it by someone else and it is not to compete with others, then know that these are reliable bodhisattvas. These persons should be given the vows of ethical discipline and should receive them in accord with the ritual. So just as a translator's note, you see it says it's making a qualifying factor that the person's a bodhisattva. It says that these are eligible bodhisattvas. So it's assuming that you are already a bodhisattva if you are taking the bodhisattva vow. So there's an assumption there that you are a bodhisattva if you're qualified to take a bodhisattva vow. So it's just interesting. Here we find this in the bodhisattva levels, Master Asanga's bodhisattva bhumis, where again there's this qualification that you are a bodhisattva. Let's see. So within the tantric vows and the individual liberation vows, you are supposed to first take the vow and then study the bodhisattva vow. One is allowed to study the vow and then take it. Diksun.
Wata konde susung do na shansa dang do shansa. Leben papa to me mare. Papa to me sadanga. Sadanga shansa de nya sasa. De yoro shanju sen bi sa. Shansa dang do wa. Tata yang shansa les. Shansa de bombu chugo do bombu chugo. Tana de bombu kazi le na go mare. Shansa bombu chugo do ten ju no.
19.
Bombu chugo. What the bombu chugo do then what the shansa les. Shanju sin bi chuti ji do ba yang ta ba. Lawan de ba las. Shanju sin bi do ba la de ba yo ba ina. Han ne shanju sin bi de ne shanju sin bi do di de ne ji mamun de le shanju sin bi labi je ga je yo me. Nye bi je ga je yo me. Then nye bi ne kanda temba tada dabar shades. And then lang in the shanju sin bi do ba pen and you are nye min de you are is. Da de je me chunu men de sha je me de je bon wa ta. Konju go to chubung mo 참행가 들로도 상생 자동 말해 자동 다 내지 어디서 그것도 이제로 다 상주 상살래 상주선 비 수지지 노바 양다바 라완 되발라스 상주선 비 노바 라 되바 요바 이나 하네 아니 상주선 비 네 드네도 예네 하자 세바제 오레스 상주 선비 노디 되는지 마문들레 상주 선비 라비제 아니 라비제인데 단데 요아레 아니 네비제 동아 아니 다들 제메 자동 죄지 말베 상상게 자유 동아 죄지 말베 어떤 예바도 간데 요면 시고도스 투루라미는 줄로 요대야들에 놓아다
Lessa.
상주 선비 라비 제당 상주 선비 라야 가서 요레스 드지 쉐바지 요레스 녀비네 가다스 안에 상주 선비 동화서 말 동화 근데 와도 그 쉐바지네 때마다 잡으셔야데스 상주 선비 도발내가 있는 팬들 요아래 녀민들 요아서 라우레스 잡으셔야데 그래도 희네 다신 실어지 수수 다네做觉了啥 그 희네 상주 선비 도발내가 도바 요바다 니 실어지 수수 다네 생 가부도나 상주 선비 도발내가 가부도나 做下的给的人呢大型写到这叔叔节呢做就呢想就什么东巴来搞不中书呢做就了 8월 양 다번 진도 준비 8월 양 다번 진도 준비 시양 마인바 8월 양 다번 준비 시양 마인바 8월 다 내비 시양 마인나네 내비 시양 좀东巴来吧的네 젠젠도 줘봐 젠젠도 줘봐 젠단 젠도 줘봐 근데 많이 봐 바로 단단다 제네 그 정도 좀 도발량도 내한량게 있어마다 어떤 그 단다 제네 봐 많이 고 그래서 시양 많이 나네 상주 봐 템부 임바 리바샤데스 我的那个捐你怎么买呢？那想做什么东巴来吧，点不差的人，想做什么点不赢吧，日本下的，去这些东巴洋大吧，浪了，那出个印度，得讲，那么下心思，我的东巴来看的了，我的那个推荐个长度呢，那后来东巴的辛苦的是的，那么下心，得了。 不把养小五啥，得了不把养小五是，他觉得么真是个呢，写说是。
So, if we are to ask who has said these things, where is Lama Tsongkhapa getting the information from? We would find it in the Bodhisattva levels. So we have the 5 treatises on the levels and the 2 compendiums, and this falls categorically under one of the treatises on the levels. It says, for persons wanting to take the ethical discipline vows of a bodhisattva should make known in advance the fundamental precepts and the sources of fall for bodhisattvas taught here in the summary of the Bodhisattva fundamentals for the Bodhisattva scriptural collection of the discourses. So it's saying here that if someone is an interest or an inclination to bodhisattva vows, they should be given the information and they should understand well what those vows are. As it says, as taught in the summary of the Bodhisattva fundamentals for the Bodhisattva scriptural collection of the discourse. If after sincere investigation and intelligent analysis these persons are inspired, and if it is not because of as long as the inspiration is pure, as long as it isn't influenced by external factors, as long as it comes from an internal motivation based on study, based on intelligence and wisdom, then if that... let me try that again. The desire to take the bodhisattva vow has to be based on a prior investigation and analysis and a firm understanding of the bodhisattva vow to be sure that it's something that you wish to take. So it has to be free from various conditions. It has to be free from the condition of doing so others see you doing it and competing with them in that kind of way, or some kind of pressure that you're given by someone else. So these are factors that shouldn't be there. It should be from an internal motivation brought about by understanding and wisdom. It says, then know that these are reliable bodhisattvas. So the person who is a bodhisattva that has not been influenced or pressured is the suitable candidate for the 18 root and 46 secondary vows. So these persons should be given the vows of ethical discipline and should receive them in accord with the ritual. So saying once that kind of person, the person who has analyzed, the person who's studied, knows what the vows are, is an appropriate candidate, and you should give them those vows of ethical discipline of the Bodhisattva. Digsun.
다 상주 선배 동바던 하고 제나던 와도 참말에 상주 선배 동바만 내가 주고 말이다.
Bless you.
상주 선배 동바 내가 그러다. 상주 선배 동바 내가 동바도 저거 해서는 저거 대도 말해서나 근데 잡아지 마 동문에 제 두고 오지 말고.
Bless you.
상주 선배 동바 줄 제발 상주 선배 이고 그래서.
Bless you.
상사리 집 상주 선배 이나. 상주도 면한 따고 상주 선배 매발라 동바도 무슨 뭐로 손 배에서 네.
The Shanchu Semba, the
상주 선배 동바 신사들래 저 상주 선배 입에서 티고레스. 상주 선배 매발라는 상주 선배 동바도 신 주고 말해서. 손으로 왔다. 상사 리집은 상사 비지 면대 최상주 선배 이나 상주도 면한 따고 상주 선배 면서나 안 도를 신 주고 말해서. 손사 여러 다른 하가 와도 지나 쉬는 그걸로 상주 선배 동바지 도고 오지 말어. 마토네 진짜버지 도고 그래서 잡고.
Bless you.
잡아지 도 손나朋友 이렇게 마손의 예매 이렇게 상주 선배 동바는 잡아지 도고 그래서.
Bless you.
냐바다 마차바지 동안을 전 예지 도알지 여러도 잡으레스.
Bless you. So what happens then when we go and attend a ceremony, such as a blessing or initiation or any among the ceremonies where the Bodhisattva vow is given? It must be given in order for the tantric ceremony to go on. It has to be in the beginning stages as part of the preliminaries in order for the ceremony to begin and be concluded. What happens then? Because in order for you to receive a bodhisattva vow, you have to be a bodhisattva. It's a qualification. You don't receive the bodhisattva vow if you aren't a bodhisattva. So what happens? Here what happens is a facsimile of the bodhisattva vow arrives that serves as a seed or serves as a connector to the actual bodhicitta, that the actual bodhisattva vow that you will eventually take when you are a bodhisattva, that when you have bodhicitta. So the only way to get the bodhisattva vow is to be a bodhisattva, but when you take it as an ordinary person who's not a bodhisattva, you're creating something that's like a bodhisattva vow, that's similar to a bodhisattva vow, that creates a connection to the real bodhisattva vow later on. So it's a preliminary for actually getting a real bodhisattva vow. Unless, of course, you're a bodhisattva. If you're a bodhisattva, then you receive the bodhisattva vow. And that's, each individual knows that. So in the cases of, like myself, Rinpoche is saying, we receive a facsimile of the bodhisattva vow.
다 게든 희네 다신 서저진 다제부진네 상주선배 동바 가리임에 사자 가리임에 균 가리임에 평양 가리임에 그런 걸로 희네 다네 다제시네 다신 싫어지 소소 다네 싫어 제바시네 상주선배 동바 통한 평양 가리임에 균 가리임에 그런 걸로 소소 다네 안에 조아줄라스 가버주나 제제 양다번 전도 조비실 제제 양다번 전비실 제도 조비실 양 마이스 파르던 데비실 양 마이나네 상주 셈바 템보 임바 리바샤데스 어떤 게 니데나 템바샤다 용고멤버데 그때 희네 다시 싫어지 수수지네 상주선배 도발 평양가리임에 균가리임에 어떤 다지 뭐지네 수수 상주선배 도발내아들 가버주나 가소나 조아주나스 파르지 파르지 양 다반 제도 주비 시야마이 네 파르던 댐비 시야마이 그냥 주세면 도발내는 내려게 있었는데 어떤 댐비 시야마이 나네 샤주세면 도발내 바이나 샤주세면 도발 댐비요 샤주 샘바 댐비마 리바 샤데 취진지 도발 양 다바 람반데 추가진도 대장 너바 샤신 들라 뭐봐야 샤오 셰소사 어다가도 주연이데 까네 어들 내게는 샤주스베 노바 땜비 차는 거です 그때 니네 다신 싫어지 소소제네 샤주스베 노바 내게는 평양간데 요매 네 예미간데 요매
Less,
다는 소소 조 저는 샤주스베 노바 내게는 가부 종소나 조아 졸라스
less.
랜드리아 고롱 전이 차여지로다 파르지 야 다바르 제도 주비시 파르지 야 다반 제비 파르지 야 다반 제비 셰야마이 파르던 덴다 제는 그 상주 선배도 발래도 내랑기 덴다 제버던데 마이나 안 상주 선배도 바템 차는 그랬어 어떤 송도 왔다
Less. So,
갈래로
in order for there to be a very stable bodhisattva vow that arises, there has to be this in-depth analysis. Because the motivation has to be there to want to keep it, so you first analyze it. So it says here, if after a sincere investigation and intelligent analysis. So it says you should look at what are the faults of taking the bodhisattva vow, are there any? What are the faults of not taking the bodhisattva vow? What are the benefits of taking the bodhisattva vow? What are the benefits of not taking the bodhisattva vow? So this is the in-depth analysis that is being spoken of. What are the negativities of not keeping the bodhisattva vow? What are the benefits of what are the negativities of not keeping the bodhisattva vow? Is it more negative to have the vow and not keep it, or not have the vow? So this is what analysis is in terms of the bodhisattva vow. So once the person who wishes to have the bodhisattva vow has done a thorough analysis in that fashion, has looked at the faults, has looked at the benefits, has analyzed it from every way possible, at that point in time, if he or she then wishes to have or take the vow, then that person should be right away given the bodhisattva vow. It says that these persons should be given the vow of ethical discipline and should receive them in accordance with the rituals. So as soon as the person has all of those qualities, which are the wisdom which has analyzed this bodhisattva vow, and the motivation and faith and so forth to want to take this bodhisattva vow, once this wish and this wanting for the vow is there based on wisdom, at that point the person should immediately be given the bodhisattva vow. So I think that's everything. Rinpoche repeated a few points in there, but I believe that that's everything. Diksung Rinpoche.
상주 선배 자동 규제 니지 시도 말봐. 자동 규제
1846.
니지 시도.
Shiju.
어디 튜도 라민 년주는 어디 맞춘 년주도 어떤 여러다. 어디 순간가래도다. 내가 좀 주도 내는 거다.
So we find the bodhisattva vows in the 6th session Guru Yoga. When we recite it, you see that it's they're listed within the bigger 6th session Guru Yogas. Those bodhisattva vows are listed, and sometimes just the root vows, the 18 root, but the lengthier ones also have the 46 secondary infractions. So making for a total of 64 bodhisattva vows. Right? Yes. Making for a total of 64 bodhisattva vows. Diksung.
어디서 샤주스메 도발내가 콜 튀제나 그거 창도에 나는 콜 동바도 진구레스 안에 추가진도 대장 너바샤신 샤주스메 도바데 네 콘데바요 근데 진구레 샤신 들라 보바양 샤오 동바 만보 동바 신고레스 셰소스
맞아요.
어떤 바지레도 와다 대나 하잖아 셰바시네 이드시네 대달라 히 타바네 손도장네 노발랑나 신도 땜바 유유 는 타정고 사지르무지 어디 장살도 송바데 시다가 타정부레스다
맞아요.
대나 하잖아 샤주 셈비 하자도 좀 셰바지네 안도서 땜바 차송는 레나 샤주 셈비 동바 레가 타시드 정부레스 하잖아 셰바시네 샤주 셈비 하잖아 셰바시네 자동 주제된 예시도 어디서 그걸로 셰바시네 대달라 히 타바네 론드 장네 동발라나 신도 땜바 주스 네 동바 땜바 차그레스 는 타정고 제르무지 샹살 송바도 타정고 시다레스
So now Lama Tsongkhapa comments on the Asanga's Bodhisattva's levels, saying that this is a very good method because if you understand the precepts, bring them to mind, establish a wish to train in them from the depths of your heart, and then take the vows, you'll be extremely constant. So this extremely constant is referring to this stability, that the Bodhisattva vows are very stable and just very stable. Dambocha means it be like a rock, becomes very stable. So, let me see. The decent Rinpoche.
타정고 대양 건데다 네 우 니가 시나 원니가 시나 치그 코체버는 교유 오도 때마셔오스 건데다 원니가 시나스 원래 장주선비 동바 연구해지로다 너 가도도 그가 노치 돈을 시나 세모머리는 도스 치그 코체반 교유 너 호드시게 있어도 올마 샹사 노야 자시고 서로와 템버샤오.
So then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to say that it'll be explained later, and he doesn't want to become really wordy. It says, to explain the precepts both here and below would make for too great a burden of words, so I shall indicate them below. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, because he doesn't want to be redundant, he's going to just give the information in the section where the information is. Diso.
다니바 때마르베 니바.
Leso.
니바 때임바. 샤sen지 동발라 론도 장바다. janne domba zonwa marbe janne domba zonwa de redoa change rajal janne domba zonwa de ni ba ne rajal janne domba zonwa ne ni ba ne chujin liyu de ba chujin shansa chujin liyu de ba domba jetar lalo da zama ta ne za dong da zama ta ne za dong da ne ji ji dong na son tu da nya na shi ju lu na je ba ten la po sen be ne do ba len bi ngaru do ne ba ta gu be te she ba sha wos ta do ba len bi chu de me de do ba len bi chu ne ba do ba len bi chu ne ba ne chi tin lu de ba shang sai chi tin lu de ba domba jeta len lu da shang chu sen bi domba ga da len wu res song yo res len lu da tama ta ne shang chu sen bi domba len sa du tama ta ne shang chu sen bi dong za dong ju ji ye ji xie du wo de su ge shi za dong ju ji yin ba ye ji ji ju xie du ye ji ji dong na song chu da nya na shi ju lu na je ba ten la po sen be do ba le be nga ru do nga ba ta gu be se she ba sha wo shang sa chu tin lu na shi je me ji de sa mo na ye ji ro shang sa chu tin lu na shi song sa be yin song de
Less so.
ya
Ale, okay. So number 2, taking the vows of conqueror's children after establishing the desire to learn the precepts. So once you have this analysis and have this desire based on wisdom to take the bodhisattva vows, the actual taking of them. And then Lama Tsongkhapa actually references one of his other texts. I have already explained in detail in my Basic Path to Awakening commentary on the Bodhisattva levels chapter on ethical discipline. First, how to take the Bodhisattva vows. Immediately after that, how to guard against fundamental transgressions and transgressions which constitute minor infractions, and then how to repair vows if they degenerate. It is most definitely necessary that you read this before you take the vows, so understand them from there. Dikso.
This one. Nipa Dumpa Lempi Chu Tsirin Luyu Dreba Tang, Tangpa Jeta Len Lu Tang, Ne Tema Ta Ne Tsa Tong Tang, Tsa Yu Tong Chu Ji, Da Tu Ji Me Chu Ne Mu Te Shi, Tu Tu La Mi Ne Yu Yu De, Tsa Tong Chu Ji Tang, Chu Ji Tang, Nye Ji Ji, Nye Ji Ji Ju Ju Ji Shi Du Ro, Nye Ji Ji Tong Nang, Song Chu Tang, Nya Na, Shi Chu Lu Na Je Bar, Ten La Po Sen Bes, Shanshen Tsutin Ji Lu Na Shi Na Jirin Ba Ji, or the Ten La Po Sen Ba Yi Song.
So here it says, first, how to take the bodhisattva vows. Immediately after that, how to guard against fundamental transgressions. So here this is speaking of the root vows. So there are 18 root vows. And then how to fundamental and transgressions which constitute minor infractions. So here this is referring to the 46 secondary vows. So the root vows and then the secondary vows, how to keep them. And then how to repair if they degenerate. Digson.
Oje ta somba den ba somba. Jan ne jese ji domba zonwa se tan de ni ba ji. Somba zon ne sha ju se me domba zon ne che ta la bi su. Sha ju se me domba zon ne che ta la bi su de la son re doa. Quand la bi je tan de la ba nam. De la ba nan du tus. La bi je Shanchu Sembe Labi Je Nang Le, and Shanchu Sembe Laba Kan Tenon Du Du Ares, Tenon Tsang Du Ares, Du Du Tang, Tela Jeta Labi Rimbas, Nen Laja Tela Jeta Labi Rimbas, Saji Song Jigdua, Songba Tela Song. Zon Ne, Shanchu Sembe Domba Zon Ne, Jeta Labi Chu Tela Saji Song Rendua. Song Je, Song Chua Sena, Kala Labi Je. Tel haba nan du bichu, labi je nan le, shanchu senbe laba kanga du gres, nipa je, tel la che ta labi rinbas, saje song jigan do song. Song ba la song. Tel kale ju gu do kale ya.
Sumba la song then a tambo the jitsun kappa chu. So number 3, how to train after taking the vows. And number 3, there are actually 3 categories. First, what the precepts are based on. Second, how all precepts are included in the 6 perfections. And number 3, the process of learning the perfections. So then we first get into what the precepts are based upon. Okay. This one last.
Quand la bi je, ta tombe quand la bi je ne, tombe ne, quand la bi je ne Si yo ta ye jans yo ma bu yo de ta ye jan ne ri de na ma du ne son ba yina du na paru de shin ba tro do shan ju sen bi la ja na de shin ru ge shan sen ji la ji ne ta da de bi don chen bo Shinru le do Shinru marbe Shinru no lo and Shanchu Sembe Laja to yo ga jeba ga je na Shinru ten du no we je ba ta si yo ta ye jans du na Shinru du du ar Shinru paru chimba tu chimba churin zoba chundu santen shero o de nga de 존디디어 조도 샤주 셈벨 하자난 뒤스 신조 나로 샤주 셈벨 하자 그거 같은 뒤디어 레스 샤주 셈벨 하자나 뒤 신조나 샤센지스 시스 퍼바진도 와디 샤센 라지 네타다 뒤 농천보사 신조도 샤주 셈벨 라가 같은 뒤비 농천보레스 그거 신조는 뒤디어 레스다 사죠 랑아 두스가 총랑주 랑 총랑고랑 물론 어디서 막 뒤나 시든 뒤에서
Less so if we were to take all of the various paths of the Mahayana, the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning, we would see that it's really a summary of the 6 perfections. So the 6 perfections can be really found within those. And then it says there are limitless clear categorizations, but if you arrange the bodhisattva precepts by type, you can include them all within the 6 perfections. The 6 perfections are thus the great condensation of all the great key points of the bodhisattva path. The 4 ways to gather disciples, generosity, pleasant speech, working at aims, and consistency of behavior are also included within these 6 perfections as follows. The generosity is included as obvious. Pleasant speech is giving instructions to disciples. Taking the 6 perfections as the point of departure, working at the aims is establishing others in the aims of these instructions, and consistency of behavior is practicing just as the disciple does. So we begin to analyze and find that everything can be included within the 6 perfections in terms of practices. And the 6 perfections are generosity, ethics, effort, patience, concentration, and wisdom. So when we look at these 6 different categories, we can say that this really is a summary of the path of the Buddhas, path to the Buddhas, if you will. Chutsuju.
Oh yeah, what chason na wouldn't chason na ruch.
Tanda?
The be.
Chutsuju dan karma je.
What Chandru.
The Jatun.
Jaton what Jaton chason na go in na do this.
Okay, so we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Snacks and so forth. We'll be right back. There we go. Okay.
신조 도 계시부 송도 신조 인바 추진 서바 전주 상된 시라 대초도 신조 어떻게 되버도 어때 고물도 어때 시딘 지도를 말해 이미 롱슈 이미 되버도 가르스나 롱슈 드레스 이미 롱슈 tinjide 추진 되버도 된로를 된로 추진 손을 하다 말지 그래서 된로를 그래서 이미 롱슈 tinjide Zöbin Nandens, Zu Zawante, what Zöbin Debores, Zöbin Nanden, Zöbin Jis, Maziji Chowade, Ziji Chowade, Plaina Maina Karin, Ziji Chowade, Zöbin Debim, Zöbin Nanden, Zöbin Jis, what Zöbin Nanden, Zun Zebade, Zöbin Debim, Zoba Gongan, Zun Zebin Woroda, Zöbin Nanden. 전배지 전주 담에 되버들 제지 쳐보 용거 말이다.
맞아요.
누가 쳐보는 용거만로. 저배 나던 전배지 상대지제 상대 구면 되버들 생주 세신 두어 용거레스 상대지제 루트 셔러 공비 되버들 안에 녀모 받을 제일 되버 좋아도 용거레스 루트스 어디 정도다.
So the 6 perfections each have their own results, and we find in the Nagarjuna's Precious Garland where it points out the specific connections that these have to their results. So it says, first, through generosity, one has the enjoyments. So it says, through generosity, one has enjoyments. These are things like house and cars and things we use, water, food and drink, etc. So through generosity, we have the enjoyments. Through ethics, one has happiness. So happiness referring to higher realms, etc. So through ethics, one has happiness. Through patience, one has good color or beauty. So through patience, one has beauty. Through effort, one will have charisma or have presence, power of presence. So through this effort, one will have power of presence. Through concentration, one will have peace of mind or a mind that is very peaceful. And through wisdom, enlightenment will be achieved, or something like this. Enlightenment will be achieved. These are the results that we find of the six perfections according to Nagarjuna in the Precious Garland.
So
this is something that obviously makes you have a doubt or a need for further investigation. So it would be interesting to ask scientists what they think of this connective cause and effect to the things that we have, to see if this is something that they would agree with. Decent.
So
it's saying that you become rich or have wealth through giving, through the power of generosity. So the text says that through generosity you will have wealth. What would a scientist say? Where does wealth come from according to science? So the next is, it says that from ethics comes happiness. So happiness of the higher realms of gods and humans and so forth. So here we state that this is how happiness occurs. What would a scientist say? How would a scientist say that this happiness of the higher realms and so forth occur?
So
according to the text, beauty comes from patience. So if you want to be beautiful, the cause is patience. So this is what we assert. What would scientists assert, Di-sung? So the next effort, from effort comes great presence or charisma. What would they say of this? So that you can see that there are some people who have this very tormented mind and others who have a very peaceful mind. And we say that the peaceful mind is a direct result of concentration or meditative stabilization. So true is actually freedom. So from wisdom comes freedom, sometimes liberation, I guess, liberation or freedom, because from wisdom one can get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience.
Less
so. Mitapa, Denzing Judru. Doni, okay. Dene, Shinchu Kujor?
Dene,
Shintu Kojor.
다 신도 고주 다 다나 가서 대 진비 농수 티지데 제비나 어디 신도 고주 있어 말데.
Okay. When we divide phenomena up, we can divide it into three separate categories: manifest phenomena, hidden phenomena, and extremely hidden phenomena. So first category is manifest phenomena. Manifest phenomena is the things that we can just see and experience. For instance, the form that we see and have a direct valid cognition of, direct perception of with our eye consciousness seeing a form. This would be an example of manifest phenomenon. The next category is hidden phenomena. So hidden phenomena would be things like emptiness, things like impermanence, the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. All of these things would categorically fall into that which is hidden phenomena, because one needs to rely upon a sign in order to establish it. It's not something that we directly perceive or directly understand. It's something that requires analysis and a sign in order to establish. And then the last category is extremely hidden phenomena, or very hidden, or extremely hidden phenomena. And that would be things like what we're saying now. From generosity comes the enjoyments. From ethics comes happiness. These things would be extremely hidden and would not be able to be understood just by relying upon a sign. One would need to have a faith inference through belief or through faith to establish this.
다 진바 추지서 신도도 그걸로 신도 그래부터도 좀 신도 고주인이죠. 신도 고주인이 나 아야데 와게 네 상제제 좀 고주라 간지 더좀 제줘봐. 디 동반이 된데 되니 코나 이시샤스. 당부 동반이 된 거라서 들 동반이 내수 시에서 손나 안에 들라 예체네 진비롱주 tin지도 어두도 그 이시지 당달된 시에는 그랬어. 그래서 주요된라 물로시 현라지서 봐봐 이스 나는 주요된 대제도 그걸로 뭐도 지레비 조사도 되는 거데 진바 당달된 롱션 중앙에서 그걸로 네 롱라 예치는 시에는 그래서 이시지 당다.
So how do we establish this faith through inference? How do we believe this? And there are various texts that give us a way to do so. Arya Davis 400 verses says in stanza number 280, "Whoever doubts what the Buddha said about that which is hidden should rely on emptiness and gain conviction in him alone." And then we find in the Pramanavartaka Karika by Dharmakirti, where it says that through relying on the hidden, such as the Four Noble Truths and so forth, one can develop faith and conviction in that which is extremely hidden. So here, this is how one creates this faith through belief, or faith inference through belief. It's by analyzing things which are hidden and establishing them as true, and then by realizing that these hidden things are fact, applying that same logic to the extremely hidden and saying that if this is correct, this must be as well. Digsun. But there is quite a lot to think about when we look at these. Less so. So these are things that are understood in time through inference, through belief. It's not something that you can see with direct perception. It's not something that you can see through correct use, through a correct sign. It's something that you can only use the correct sign of inference through belief. And that is the only sign that you can use, and that is that it was stated by one who stated these other things. So this is how inference through belief works, and it's something that happens over time. And because you can't directly perceive it, you can't use correct signs, you have to rely on the author. You have to rely on the speaker at that point. And that comes about through this process of understanding the hidden. Digsum. She's saying the great treatise on the stage of the path is such a jewel. There's such important information in here, and it's so thoroughly written.
See what tai Jedong Shangju Senbi Lang de la Yuwa Tai ba Yue Jiang Ri Du Na Paru de Shinba Zhu Du Shangju Senbi Laja Nang Du Yu Shindu Nang Lu Shangju Senbi Laja Gang Du Nu Res Du Yu Shindu Na Shangju Shang Sen Ji Lang Ji Ne Ta Da Du Dong Chenmo Sa Shindu Nang Lu Shang Sen Ge Naga Gang Den Du Yu Dong Chenmo Res doa jeyang, ane tendu de jimba doa na lala, jimba doa lala, si jimba ne shindu le zang de duja lan dongba yin shins, ne dun shue ba ne dambi dun de yin gui ba yin las, dun tun ba ne rangi jang Duja dan rawa droba yimi shiros droba yimi ranju meje bhasin tu yenju meje duyu ngobuji de wotere do duyu ngobuji doa je ha duyu ngobuji de josan takate duja jen le tiba chenbi shangchu senba so de jen duya ge taje de duyu ngobuji de doa je ha tendu de shindo duyu ngobuji de shindo nal du yores shindo lu sodo ne duyu ngobuji yo mares duyu ngobuji shindo nal kandas du resna doa je han tendu de jimba doa na halas jimba de duyu ngobuji na jimba nal du no da do halas chi nyeba ma duja le da ji de ki nyeba je wo jo da heba ne shindu le zang de duja la dongba yin shins shindu le zang de yin le chue she bi se ci ni heba go go jiro da dongba yin shin dun shue ba ne dambi dun de la yin go ba yin la su su nyang lan che sha bi nga de le yin da de le go ba de la gres su su la ba na ji yin da zui wo de na ji che si la ya de res dun shue ba ne dambi dun de la yin gui ba yin la dun tun ba ne rangi jang duja dan rawa ruba yin bi shiros duja shirung ko den che gwa res la ne ane kurung ya wa de nyalen de che gu res dun shue ba dun tun ba se tun ba ne teda ki jang duja dan rawa ruba yin bi shiros o de bu kale ji yu na ranju meje bhasin tu yenju meje duyu ngobaje bhasin tu de rang ju de meba je ge man wa yenju meje duyu ngobaje yenba dan heba ma den shue ba den tu wa tu yeba ina yen phe tu no je da.
So the six perfections are really the key points of the Bodhisattva path that one practices internally. The four ways of gathering disciples are included also in these six perfections, because these six perfections are then explained to the disciples, as well as that generosity is included. Generosity is included is obvious. Pleasant speech is giving instructions to disciples, taking the six perfections as the point of departure. Working at the aims is establishing others in the aims of these instructions, and consistency of behavior is practicing just as the disciple does. Diksan.
Deyang cu ni dang, laba song la su bi jang, shang sen ji, lang tang ji, du me jang, Shinduki Goa Jeba Tar, Duji Jenji Tata Menube, Shindula Du Jishebe, Chu Yinosa, Shindula Du Jishebe, Doa de Yashu de Resita Yashu, Chu Yino. Raju Meji Pajin to Yenju Meji Du Ngobaji, what to let them do. That Tuni, so now to the Shi Tuni Zomarbe, Tuni Dan, Labason, Chitinji Laba, Tingazi Laba, Shiraji Labason, Son La Soba, Sobi Jan, Shansenga, Nanga, the Tunolan Du Ares, Du Merjans, Shindu Goa Jeba Tar, Shindul Nyalan no the Shanchu Sembi Lan Goa Jeba Tar, then Tuni Dan, Labason La Soba, the Goa Jet Humares. Jeba Menube, Shindula Du Je, Sheba Chuinos, Shindula Du Je, Sheba Yashudes.
Although it is true that the entire Bodhisattva path is also subsumed under other condensations, such as the 2 collections, the 3 trainings, ethical discipline, meditative concentration, and wisdom, and so forth, these are not able to produce the understanding that the 6 perfections do. So the 6 perfections are the best inclusive set. So here, it's saying the 2 collections being the collection of exalted wisdom and the collection of merit. And then the 3 trainings, the list isn't in the text. Rinpoche explained what the 3 trainings were, but the text writes it. Here it's referring to the 3 higher trainings, highest higher training in ethics, meditative concentration, and wisdom. So it's saying that these 2 sets and the trainings and so forth don't really have this all-encompassing, all-inclusive understanding that the 6 perfections does. So it's saying that are the best and if we're looking in terms of inclusion of all the practices, the 6 perfections are the best, and even better in terms of inclusion and understanding of inclusion and condensation. Even more so than the 2 collections or the 3 highest higher trainings. Digsung Rinpoche.
Habijin Bas. Taniba Tero Niba. Tela Labanan Dutu, Labanan Dutu Nibaro, Labanan Dutu Nibare. Nibala Ni de Do, Nibala Ni, Maji Tun, Chang Eba Dance, Maji Ten, Chang Eba Dan, Shala Kuring Eba Temba was, Shala Kuring Eba. Maji Tun, Chang Eba Temba Shindu. Shindu the Chang Eba Menroa. Shala Kuring Eba Temba. Jimba Tambo, Jimba Chudin, Zuba Tundu, the Korinji no Yungu at the Karis Legamendua. Kuring Eba Temba Wo. Tambo Ningaji Tun, Chang Eba Tene. Chunden Deji Shinduki, Donzan Zeba Las. Chunden Deji Shajaman Bude, Ne Shinduki, Donzan Zeba La. Jesa Tambes, Jesa Tamba Jashamango Vijiru, Jashamango. Jesa Tambi, Tetaran Zebi, Jusenji Nena, Gomba Jin, Tene, Neshe Jebane, Changasun Dana Yimbe, Dala Yitrubi, Neba Niena, Shinduki Nyalela, Dambi Chudun Zemba, Jongyu, Neba Nyeba Shawos, what the Kalelo done.
So now we move on to number 2, how all precepts are included in the 6 perfections. And then there are 2 categories under that. A discussion of the main topic, the fixed number of perfections, and 2, an ancillary discussion of the fixed order of the perfections. So these are the 2, and then we move into the first category and the explanation. So it says the Bhagavan. Bhagavan here is referring specifically to Buddha Shakyamuni, the one thus gone. I think that's what Bhagavan is in Sanskrit to English, maybe Dejan Shepa, I think. Formulated a bare outline of the 6 perfections, and the holy regent, Lord Maitreya, produced certain knowledge of these by explicating in accord with the Buddha's intended meaning the key points of rationale for formulating the perfections in that fashion. These explanations show that there is a fixed number of perfections. When you are convinced of this and astonished by it, you will understand the practice of the 6 perfections as supreme instruction, so obtain such conviction. So here, now we get into the actual fixed number of perfections, saying there aren't 7, there are 6 perfections, and then why? What are those 6 perfections? They are generosity, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. So these are the 6. Digson.
Jundan de Shinduki, Donzan Zebalas, Jundan de Shinduku Dondana, Jimba Chutin Zobatan de Watason Yervata, Donzan Zebalas, Jasa Tambi, Josh Amongbe, Jasa Tambi, Tatan ne Jusen Nena, ne Sanji Gomba Jin Trewaris, Gomba Jin Trene, Nashi Jebala, Tranga Sundana Yembe, Dadala Yitrubi, Neba Nienas, Shindu, Tusula Yitrubi Neba Niena, Shindu Nyalenla, Dabi Chudun Zemba Jongyu, Neba Nieba Shaw, so what the Lujonjin, what the Yabajin Shibaji would as one is that. Jonden de Shindu Nundan Zebalas, Jimba Chudin Zobatundus, Sanji Sun Yajava. What the Jasa Samangam and the Shishin, the Sebujin Sun waters. Tambi, the Zanzebi, Jusenji, Nena, Gombajin, Sanji Gombajin, Trine, Nashi Jebane, Chang and Sundana Yembe, the Dala, Yitrubi, Nebaji, Nienas, Shindu, Sanji Sumbi Tudan, Jajami Deba, what is looking all ten, and the Yichi Niensuna, Niena, Shindu Nyan La, Dambi Chudun Zeban Jong Yus, or the Dambi Chudun Jong Yu, Neba Shawos, what is the Lujonjin Abijang was something that.
So it's important in order to understand this and to gain conviction to study. It says, the holy regent, the Bhagavan formulated a bare outline of 6 perfections, and the holy regent Maitreya produced certain knowledge of these by explicating in accord with the Buddha's intended meaning the key points of the rationale for formulating the perfections in that fashion. These explanations show that there is a fixed number of perfections. When you are convinced of this and astonished by it, you will understand the practice of the 6 perfections as a stream instruction. So obtain such conviction. This conviction is obtained through studying, through analysis, through gaining the same certain knowledge that Lord Maitreya gained in dependence upon what the Buddha taught. And then Lord Maitreya explained in his texts. So by depending upon what Lord Maitreya depended upon, and by depending upon his words and explanations, one can gain that same certain knowledge that Maitreya did, because it's the same information that we're using. Digson.
Oje Tangoji Tun Trang Abas, Moji Tun Trang Abas, Shala, Kuring Abas Sajini Ro, Ning Tambula Saji Joja Gurezon. Tambula Saji Jo, Joden de Shinduki, Donzan Zebala, Jasa Tambe, the Tanzebi, Jusenji Nena, Gombajin to Trene, Nashi Jebal Changa Sundana, Yembe, the Dala Yitrubi, Nebanyena, Shinduki La Dambi, Chudun Zeban Jongyu, Nebanyeba Shawos, what the Tambula Saji Joja Gures, that too. 중된되지 신주의 동전제바서 어떨래 사실 조지노레스
Okay, so
달라 조레스
less so.
신주의 장에 내비 수들라 조자고 조
So the six perfections have with certainty only six. So Rinpoche read it again. The Bhagavan formulated a bare outline of the six perfections, and the holy regent Maitreya produced certain knowledge of these by explicating, in accord with the Buddha's intended meaning, the key points of rationale for formulating the perfections in that fashion, so with that number. These explanations show that there is a fixed number of perfections. When you are convinced of this and astonished by it, you will understand the practice of the six perfections as the supreme instruction, so obtain such a conviction. So, the discussion of the main topic, the fixed number of perfections, has six categories. So it's saying that this point about the fact that it is fixed in number, in terms of numbers. So there's two categories, that it's fixed in terms of number and fixed in terms of order. So it's in the order that it's given and the number, and it doesn't change. That's correct. And then these sections will prove and show why. And so we're under the point of the fixed number, and then there'll be six parts to this. Okay? Ewa Drew.
뭐지 된 장에바들 사실 조제고레 사실 조제무지 조레스 너무 것들라 뒤에 장에 신주의 시스 퍼바션데 뭐들라 뒤에 근데 신주 장에 그래서 뭐들라 뒤에 장에 내서 뭐도 하다메 대상을 뒤에 네 신주의 장에 그래서 또 정말 비추도 가르쳐서 나 장에 내 샤주 쉐발라 쳐왔나 샤주 선비 쉐발라 쳐왔나 조발라 서로바도 매바스 샤주 줄로바 쳐왔나 조발라 내 저와질 조도만일 조 서로바도 매방고 마음고 그래서 바도 매바 주글라사 네 사자면은 보다 깨바 담아 손도 사요로 가지 깨바 담아 제죠 손죠 나죠 어디 담아 뭘 수사고 근도 어디 손도 말봐 뭐들라 뜻도 장안에 샤주 주셔봐 러쳐와 남 조발라 서로 봐도 매봐 저 뭐고 그래서 서로 봐도 매봐 주글라스 대양랑지 사주 원라 대천이 용수 줘봐 르르 매봐 다디 된다와 차르 장 예배 루장
I see.
부제양 메턴베 네 차탕지네 평소 소바시 고소스 조나 담으디 말에 담으디 말에다
Okay, so the first category, the fixed number of perfections based on high status. So based on high status being the gods and humans, and it says to fully complete the greatly effective bodhisattva deeds, you need an immeasurably long succession of lifetimes. Moreover, to attain quick success on the path within these lifetimes, you need a life excellent in every respect. Our present life is not excellent in every respect, but rather has only some of the aspects of full excellence. We do not make progress with it, though we practice the teachings. You need a life that has four kinds of excellence. So the first category deals with the fixed number based on high status. Then the Geshe Lama son.
저 바도 매바 주급에 손사디 네 저와 심마 여바디 손들 봐 저와 심마 아주 저와 심마 여바도 어디 손들 거다 저와 심마 간데 요아데 저와 가마 간데 요아데 어디 내주 그거 해거다 저와 가마 여비 주세 저와 심마 여비 주세 어디 그걸로 레용도다.
So here we have to establish and have a reason for previous lives. So when we look at this fixed number, the Buddha accumulated merit for 3 countless eons in order to, after generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment. But some practitioners have 40 countless eons, some 50 countless eons. So this isn't fixed. 6 perfections are fixed in terms of number. The other topics within Buddhism are not fixed. This is an example of fixed, and its relationship to high status.
다 저항하마 나술 저항하마 요아레스 봐. 저항하마 간요아레스나 나수 어디 지만 답을 까 내용 거레스. 지만 답을 받은 내용 거레스 거라. 받을 까 내용 데이터마 저알 투마 메버레스.
So we have this idea of a previous life, and before the previous life, and an intermediate state which came after a previous life to that. So when we look at this pattern and we look at this sequence, we see that there are beginningless lifetimes. So we have to establish this beginningless lifetime and then be able to establish a future lifetime to look at these points.
다 저와 셔마 간데서 여르스는 저와 셔마 루벨 따도 요로 게버 시카면 주지 레바 주지 레바 셔마 상자도 차진지 레바 임베셔스 뭐 게버 시갈라면 대주지 레바 저와 셔마를 루그레스 주생 가르스나 너샤도 집에 레바 임베셔스 차진지 레바 임베셔스 따도 고요로다.
So the Dayanda, the Jewa Shima Dayanda?
저와 셔마 루벨 따다.
Okay. So the establishment of future lives is that if at the point of death, when someone is old or on their deathbed about to die, if they still have this attachment, then this is a mind looking to the next. So this attachment shows that there will be a future life if this attachment is still present. So the correct sign to establish that there will be a future life is this attachment that's still present at the end of this life.
다 저항하마도 이슈바도 라이즈바레스 거로다 라이즈바레스 남바제 나와데 바둔마 용어레스 저알 토마메 바레스 데이터마 토마요 마레스.
So according to Buddhism, we are from the intermediate state, which is from the previous life. According to Christianity, they would say that God creates all of these things, but we say that there's a series of cause and effects. So then there's quite a bit to think about in order to establish this pattern.
차진지 레바 임베 고들 다좀 받이 시거로 다좀 시들 여자 콜 지원하는 말보다 다좀 줄 대사 매서 차진지 레바 매로 차진지 레바 매서 심하게 콜 지고 말보다.
So a foe destroyer has this ending wisdom, this cutting wisdom, which makes it so there is no attachment present. So there is therefore, since this cutting of this attachment, the severing of attachment has taken place, there isn't that projecting element that creates this future life for the foe destroyer, because they no longer have that attachment. So if you think slowly in these terms, then your wisdom increases more and more as you understand more and more. So slowly you'll be able to ascertain. Then make kashi chiwa yure. Okay, Rinpoche said now maybe we can go to the questions that you had and see where we end up there, just so we don't miss that. Okay. Cool.
Rinpoche, my question was, do Shravakas and to hearers and solitary realizers also have merit and wisdom, or they just do they train in wisdom alone?
Okay. Niantu dan ranjel, the triwa. The coin triwa, the niantu dan ranjel, konsu the top dan sherap nicha yurebe, the sherap kona yure. Kongi triwa.
Niantu dan ranjel to the Shirada yure, don't you want to do Shirada? Taught what the Shanju sent on the Tomedro. Nanuk somebody at the Yudro, touch your years, touch your mothers, made Shanju sent on his maybe.
Okay, so we could say that the hearers and solitary realizer do have a small amount of method, because we would say that the desire to definitely emerge or renunciation would categorically fall into that. If we're looking at merit and saying that merit is exclusively the mind that aspires to enlightenment, then we would say no, they don't have merit. But if we look at what merit is in terms of the actual word merit, there are slight amounts of merit that the hearer and solitary realizer do create, nothing by comparison to the bodhisattva, but there are slight amounts of merit that are created. But there is the wisdom realizing emptiness is what they have in a complete form, but not the merit.
Okay, thank you.
Next question. Stasha.
Thank you. For those of us who receive the facsimile of the Bodhisattva vow, when we have transgressions, is it the same negative karma as if we had the Bodhisattva vow?
The ngachu sanchu shanchu sembi dumba dan drapo yure. Then the shanchu sembi dumba dan drar the chagna the dipasa gangisena ngatsu nyune yomare. Then ngatsu the sawa juje the chana. Then ngatsu dipasa due.
Deba yungures. Sona pen yungures.
Dipa chipa, the ngatsu shanchu sembe dumba nyune yuna, the cha, the nyune mena yune drapo yuna, deep.
Draba yun deba draba yungures. Draba yungures. Pen draba yungures.
So Rinpoche said yes, there would be similar. So you would have just as you have a vow that's similar, you would have ethics that's similar. So your abandonment would create virtue, and your abstention would create virtue. But then engaging in or breaking those vows would create non-virtue, because it would be similar to. So it would be similar to in terms of everything.
다저 하마도 셔말 저 하마도 셔말 산단 자면 또 되네. 사이즈 버스 라장 말. 사이즈서 대인사 말. 다저 하마 요아래 심아요. 나베 중네 당하다고 주.
So there are those that say where this past and this future lives, these must have, there's no way to figure it out. So they say that a God must have created these. We as a Buddhists state that this is separate. We as Buddhists state that we establish through correct signs how this has been created, past and future lives. Anyone else? Kasan. Question?
How do we know the correct sign? It's so confusing.
It's confusing the concept of rebirth based on causes and conditions. I understand that there's the concept of soul in other faiths, and we don't practice that. So it's very confusing. What takes rebirth?
The consciousness.
Consciousness.
The Jewa Shima dan Jewa Ngama, the Yishu soul yure, yine namba ngatsu the Keleng amare, Gari drogodu.
저 셔말 당가서 봉으로 아버도 가서 로세야 될 하고도. 나는 작은도. 살아봐. 시바도 시바.
Consciousnesses. We get the aggregates and so forth, the coarse aggregates are discarded, and then the consciousness is what carries forward to the future life. The Yishu, the soul, the Dakpar Jeff. Dakpar Jeff soul, Dakpar Jeff. The Jewa Shema, the Layu Dro, Jeff Dro. Sheba Yomar. Jeff Sheba Jeffian. The Khensur Rinpoche.
真的你这些个旅行是比较严实，每个王不那样节目旅种不，一种不，旅种不俺有了俺，这是什么个旅个原因是个多的，真的你这些
So the causes of
旅行是比较严实。
the causes of the future body are the sense powers, the subtle sense powers that are present. So the future body and the seeing and so forth, the subtle sense powers carry forth from the previous, and the consciousness is the so it's the two, the subtle sense powers and the consciousness itself.
시바도 말고 그래. 오번가도 말고도 pom보라바데 내가 로스 대자 못하던.
So the five sense powers travel, the consciousness travels, and then the coarse aggregates are discarded.
어떤 데서도.
This is what's said. To Chena.
야. 와, 그것도 좋아요.
John.
Can we consider maybe consciousness, and maybe science can answer this in the future, can we consider consciousness possibly to be a form of energy? Because when we speak, think, act, we release energy or produce energy. It's either virtuous or non-virtuous. And that affects our consciousness and follows our consciousness, either as a part of it or as a side thing like baggage. But can we consider consciousness a form of energy?
I think this was beyond Buddhism. I think it would be science, but I'll ask Rinpoche. I don't even know how you would translate energy, what you would use as
Well,
a
everything
word.
in the universe is a form of energy.
Yeah, but wind is wind. I don't know that energy would be... consciousness rides on the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what we're... Because we need to we have to use wording that Rinpoche will know and be able to establish it as what your question is. And the energy that moves is wind.
Well,
think there's a
I think
word
I
for
think in
energy.
Tibetan parlance, the mind or consciousness travels on wind. It might have been the only way it could be translated 2,000 years ago.
Right, but that's all they have is that's
Right.
all Rinpoche has as a frame
Right,
of reference.
right.
I don't have a way to ask him a question that isn't his frame of reference is 2,000 years ago. The kongi triwa, the Chenripa triwa, the ngatsu, the kelen, the nga kelen, the sem, the long drogudu, the long drogudu. Then kongi triwa, the sheba chik shena long, sheba long yin.
시바 롱이세요. 롱조로와 시바 조마로.
Rinpoche is saying that the wind itself, the energy behind that is carrying it, is form. Consciousness and form are mutually exclusive. So the consciousness is something separate than the energy carrying it. If we're going to say wind could have been a different word that we're using for that is energy now, Rinpoche is saying that wind is considered form. Consciousness and form are mutually exclusive. They don't have a common locus. So it's something separate. That consciousness that is traveling is something separate, but maybe it could be scientifically explained as energy. But it's defined as that which is clear in knowing, the mind. So it has this ability that it has this clarity that means that it's not sullied in any way. We sully it, and that it knows. So that's what travels, the thing that knows, the thing that apprehends, the thing that grasps, the thing that accumulates is what travels. So it probably has energy, but is energy? We'll find out maybe as science progresses.
시바도 롱마이나 롱을 땡겨서.
So the conscious, you can't say that there is a consciousness without this wind. The wind, the consciousness is the wind is the basis of the consciousness, the base of it.
시바도 롱을 땡겨 위로 파주 세당고.
So in dependence upon the wind, the consciousness is able to think. So this is what is said.
One more question?
Yeah, and then let's end.
Let's see. After you do you become a qualified bodhisattva after the path of seeing, where you can that when you can actually make a bodhisattva vow, like a real one?
No.
Okay.
Qualified bodhisattvas, it explained it in here. It's somebody who has the proper reason for taking a bodhisattva vow. It's all explained right here. It says if it is because not being made to do it by someone else, not doing it to compete. So the qualified bodhisattva is someone who has bodhicitta. Let me find the word for it. The shansa lung, then shanchu semba the tsik yure. the denden shanchu semba yuna, then a shanchu sembi dumba digson. Then the mingare, the shanchu sembi, the denden shanchu kabiare, the lungu. I'd have to look at the word that's used specifically. I'm trying to find it. 356, 357. Tambo.
이제 대비해야 많이.
The Shanchu Simba, the Ming Nyamdu, the Shansa Lung, the you mean reliable bodhisattva? Or is that what you're using? Because that's what it says in this. It calls him a reliable bodhisattva.
Like a stone almost.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the word for in here. 356. Okay. Shanchu Semba Dembo.
Dembo.
Dembo. Then they don't agare.
샤주 셈 템버스는 스톤 차그르 이제 샤주 셈 마장 된 지거로.
So, okay. So it's meaning that it's a bodhisattva who isn't going to lose his or her bodhicitta. So at the path of accumulation, just as the translators know, the path of accumulation, there's 3 levels. The first level, you could actually lose your bodhicitta. So it might have something to do with that, where they're stable enough, they don't have any of these negative motivations, so they're ready to take it.
Okay. Preparation and beyond.
The path of accumulation is where you take the bodhisattva vow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, path of accumulation is where that takes place.
Okay. Thank you.
야.
Okay, so concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The Shanchu Sembi Dumba Tsolang.
샤주 셈도 뭐
Tsolampa.
돌아네 돌아네 상지 사바도 요로.
So I was just checking what I just said to make sure. All right. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wanda, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Gutsi Shepi Denunam.